Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe Wednesday show. And we are outside of one of the new SCC security vaults, looking at some of the new dangers that are before us. But before we talk about all that and more, I wanted to introduce somebody to you, and hopefully long term, but we'll talk about that in just a second. But before all that, Rough Hades, how you doing?
I'm well, man. How are you?
I'm doing very, very good. Rough Hades, you are a streamer. You've been here around here for a while. You've recently come back, if I remember correctly. But one of the things is that you and I have been talking a lot and working together on some things in the behind the scenes. And before anything else, I think that it's important to note that you are joining the Eve Universe team, because it's a team now. Yay! I don't have to do it all myself. But you know, it's been, I've admitted it before, and I've talked about this a lot, that this has been a big, I love doing this show, but it is a big struggle to get it all done. And especially with like the big things like faction warfare going on, which we'll also be talking about. It's like spending as much time as I'm doing, like being in the news, plus trying to cover the news and everything else. It's been a lot. And so I'm very happy that you've agreed to come and try to help wrangle in the things and help make sure that the stuff that I'm trying to get done gets done. So first and foremost, thank you very much for that.
You're very much welcome.
But you have your own stream and your own show and your own thing that you do at every day. Why don't you tell me a little bit about, why don't you say like, what's your shtick? What you up to?
Well, I'm up to a little bit of everything. I'm the type of pilot that does a little bit of everything, and even trying to figure out what my niche would be. So, like, I started out running Abyssal sites a couple years ago. Took a break from Eve. Some real life things happened. Came back to Abyssals. They changed, and then went from Abyssals to faction warfare, and then with another alt, and then from faction warfare to level 4 missions, and just mining with the corporation, running my own corporation. So I'm trying to figure out what my shtick is in Eve and where I fit in, but I'm kind of liking the whole different things each stream. You know what I mean? Trying not to be at the same thing, because I know people watching the same thing over and over and over again is going to get boring. So just having that in the mix is kind of cool.
Nice. Okay. So you're what you're doing on a stream is not going to be very consistent, but you yourself are. You do your stream
Yes.
every single day at a specific time, right? So what is
Yep.
how do we catch your
I,
stream?
I go live at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time,
All
and
right.
I'm live until whenever.
Fair enough. All right. So and then also, especially since I also am a single parent. So it's one of the things that's very disruptive about my streams and whatnot. So I can't be consistent. So, but you can and you are, which is great. And so I encourage everybody to go check out Rough Hades. And I will probably be hanging around on his streams, or at least with him, or just a Discord message away most of the time during those times. So if you want that consistent stream, those people that used to watch my stuff every single day, Rough Hades is a great place to go. Give him a follow and make that into your evening show. Plus, he's not a discount hate list, so that's cool too.
Discount A list.
I had to say it. I had to say it. If I didn't say it, everybody would have been like, "Why isn't he saying it?" So I had to say it.
You're good.
You want to, and if you want to X up in the chat, and we'll put your links down below in the YouTube videos as well. So, yep. So very cool to have you on, and be working with you, and helping you out, and you helping me out, and I'm sure that we'll see a lot of you. In fact, you're going to be on my show, or you're going to be helping me make you the Universe show. So it's going to be us a lot. So hopefully things work out.
It's going to be fun.
And then,
Absolutely, it's going to be a blast.
so to that end, the other thing I wanted to talk about is I continue to have problems with the Friday show, because I can go live and do the Friday show, but then I have problems with Twitch, because if I just put it directly onto YouTube, that technically could be an issue. So if I do it on a one-off, that'd be one thing. But if I did it as like a policy that every single day, that's literally violating my partner agreement. So what we were thinking about doing is, since we do want to do more video production as well, and I still have like the Triglavian video to do, we were thinking about doing the Friday show as a YouTube video. So you would get one guaranteed YouTube video a week, one guaranteed stream a week, and then the rest of the time we would just do videos or streams, whichever ends up being the most valuable. And then you would also have Rough Hades everyday stream for your regular, touch and go. So I'm not sure if we're going to hit that utopia, but it sounds super cool and I'm very excited about it. So just wanted to let you guys know what we're working towards. Anything else about that? I think we can just move on.
Yep, we can move on.
This is not the Eve Universe news about Eve Universe. So let's go ahead and get to the actual news. And to start that off, I wanted to start off by just simply playing. There's a new Eve Pulse that was released today. So we'll just start that and talk about anything that jumps out of that.
Welcome to Eve Pulse, a close look at what's been happening in EVE Online. This will be the last episode of Eve Pulse in the current format, so you can look forward to big changes coming in the fall and a more regular cadence. But for now, the long-anticipated ESS keys are here as part of the grand heist, with 20 trillion ISK and more sitting in reserve banks across New Eden, just waiting to be liberated by the wiliest capsuleers. Obtain the ESS keys from low-sec signatures, then fleet up and raid those reserve banks. There will also be daily gifts until the 3rd of August and a market tax reduction. Now would be a great time to assemble your crew and take advantage of this combined set of circumstances to hit those reserve banks. The huge visual update to EVE Online, Bring Out EVE's Colors, is now also live as part of the Foundation Quadrant. At a high level of graphical performance, every activity in space and every visual interaction will be affected by this graphical update, as well as all ships, citadels, planetary bodies, and more. You will now see more of how the colors of EVE and New Eden were intended to look than ever before. Thank you to all Capsuleers who helped test these new features on the Singularity test server and provided valuable feedback. The Hunter's Boon update, inspired by your feedback to the development team, is also now live in EVE Online. As a result, several feature changes have been implemented, following up on previous updates such as Enter the Portal. The changes are as follows: mobile covert Cyno beacons, buffs to the Pacifier and Enforcer, bonuses to reduce nullifier penalties for interceptors, hardened cloak booster extension, and Tech 3 cruiser skill loss removal. No more retraining skills when you lose your expensive Tengu, so you can save your skill points for something else. The 16th Council of Stellar Management were recently elected and presented to the citizens of New Eden. Thanks to everyone who voted, and here's to another successful period of democracy and player advocacy in New Eden. The Enter the Portal update came to EVE Online in June. This update brought powerful buffs to the Black Ops class of Tech 2 battleships, rebalancing of Covert Ops exploration ships, and an increase to chain targets for Vorton projectors. Black Ops ships fitted with a covert jump portal are also now able to use the slick new conduit jump feature to jump into battle alongside their covert comrades. The mobile observatory deployable is now live in EVE, granting pilots a long-awaited defense against cloaking-based incursions into LowSec and NullSec. Periodic system-wide pinging has a chance of decloaking cloaked ships, which may then be combat scanned and destroyed. A new hardened cloak buff and associated booster have been added to ensure that the mobile observatory has the most impact against inactive or AFK players. Furthermore, the observatories cannot be deployed in wormhole space or Podfin. On that note, the very popular new Black Ops pack is now available in the EVE store. The pack includes Omega, Plex, 500,000 skill points, 6 months of MCT, awesome new Fireblade Gorilla skins, Expert Cerebral Accelerator, and Blood Raider apparel. And that's not the only new pack available. The Foreman pack is also now available in the EVE store, bringing great value to industry-minded capsuleers. This awesome pack contains a wealth of Plex, Omega Time, skill points, and more, as well as some magnificent Capsuleer Day 18 skins for the Rorqual, Orca, and Porpoise. What better way to celebrate EVE's 18th birthday? The first test phase of Opportunities is now live as part of ongoing efforts to embrace new capsuleers into the fold. This feature will suggest activities to pursue and give ideas on what you need to strive towards your chosen path. The results of this phase will be used to further develop the feature with the aim of improving the new player experience and helping newcomers find relevant content tailored to their interests and aptitudes. Take up your flags, Capsuleers. The Alliance tournament returns to EVE Online this November. This year's 10v10 tournament features a shake-up from previous tournament rules with changes to flagships as well as a new mercenary rule, so you can sign up to represent another alliance. Team sign-ups are open now, so gather your friends and jump into the arena. This is a great opportunity to write your alliance's name into the history books of EVE and New Eden. What have you got to lose apart from billions of ISK and hours of your space lives? In case you hadn't noticed, the EVE Academy website launched in May. This new resource aims to enhance the new player experience. EVE Academy provides a wealth of information designed to help new players decide who they want to be in New Eden. There are links to 4 career paths: Explorer, Industrialist, Enforcer, and Soldier of Fortune, where you'll get skill plans, beginner ship fitting examples, and curated links to resources created by the EVE Online community, videos, and much more. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Pulse, Capsuleers, and remember to look forward to a brand new format for the Pulse coming in the fall and a more regular episode cadence. Remember to hit subscribe to stay notified of all videos that we post, and check the description below for links to stories on everything we've covered this time.
All right. And that is the EVE Pulse, which basically did a good job of covering everything that's been happening. Didn't really talk about anything new, or anything that we didn't already know, except for the fact that this is going to be the last EVE Pulse for a while, and then it's going to come back in a new format with a more regular cadence. This, combined with the announcement of the AT coming back, leads me to believe that this could be one of the reasons why we've seen such a disjointed first half of this year. If they have some sort of focused reboot of their social presence, or like their communication strategy set to restart in the fall, then everything's kind of doing what it has to get to that point, because they've been targeting this date for some time, and they can't, like, there's a lot they can't move some pieces. So it's like that might be one of the reasons why they're seeming so clumsy right now, because they're not able to dedicate their effort right now. They're not coordinated right now because they're focused on getting their coordination together for later. I'm not saying that is the case, but it is interesting that, like I said, AT and this, they're promising a more structured EVE Pulse in the fall, which tells me that they're already building towards whatever this is later. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the fall will be potentially more important. I think it'll be more than just the return of EVE Pulse. We'll probably see a broadening of CCTV and what that means. To that end, actually, in the news today is also CCP TV, which is, of course, their Twitch thing, is looking for ads. So, in the past with like AT and stuff, players are able to make player-built ads for their corporation or alliance or whatever, and then those ads would play in between AT shows, and it's pretty cool. And then even for a while, you could put up your own ads in the in-game ads, or in-game billboards, but that wasn't supported for a long time, and eventually all of those were removed now. But they are now giving out, just like they've done propaganda contests for each of the empires, they're now doing a contest for CCP TV, where you can make an advertisement and give it to them and get one of these Galnet skins, which these Galnet skins, I gotta say, are probably some of the rarest, hardest to get skins that are actually able to be got. You know what I mean? Do you have any of these, Rough Hades? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do not. I do. They are really, really rare skins that I know of. I think the ads are pretty cool though. I didn't know they did those things before.
Yeah,
That's new to me.
Yeah, they used to do them, and then, like I said, they weren't able to do it because supporting each individual, like, the problem is that the vetting process, the maintenance, the amount of like manpower it took to actually make that project work, made it so that it was untenable. But if they actually worked on creating better content management tools or a better system, then it wouldn't be overwhelming amounts of work. So one of the reasons why everything took so much work in CCP's history was that the systems themselves were very inefficient. So massive amounts of manpower were required to do simple things. If you just simply streamline certain things, then they won't require a bunch of manual work. But either way, we'll see how far this goes, if this is going to be just for the AT or if it's going to be used probably for more broadcasts like these Pulse videos and all that stuff. But let's see. It is, all of these different rules. Most of these are just like basically it has to be able to be used, no copyrighted stuff. It has to be your stuff. It has to be Eve related, so it has to make sense. This is 15 to 30 seconds in duration. There's some technical specification requirements. 15 to 30 seconds is both longer and more flexible than previous versions. So this is hopefully, not only is this an exciting thing for people, but I'm personally excited because I think that this is like, every time we get people content creating, then we get cool stuff out of it. That the Federation Day and the Minmatar Liberation Day, some of that propaganda is good stuff. Like, they really creative work. And that stuff will last forever. We one of the things I know is that, like, I go back and I'm playing videos from 10 years ago. You never know when some video will resonate for a long time. So I'm very, very supportive of this kind of effort. Thank you, CCP.
Absolutely.
Can you use, actually, that's a good question. Can you use Eve, like actual Eve, what's it called? Assets, right? Like, obviously you couldn't play like Michael Jackson Beat It, but could you play Below the Asteroids? Technically that's copyrighted, but you might be able to have rights to it, but I don't see any provisions about it. I'll have to ask about that. Anywho, so there's that. That's a cool thing that's going on. All right, let's see.
I think it's pretty cool that they actually allow you to use their content for Eve related stuff.
Yeah, they're actually like, they're generally very supportive. I've used Eve stuff in my videos and in my emotes and all that stuff. And so far, CCP has been nothing but like super positive about it. I know that, it hasn't always been that way. It was like, I know that like Rix has run into issues with them when like he makes something, but if something gets too far along and starts looking too product-like, then the legal team often has a tendency to step in. But when it's just a content creator making something cool for that actually celebrates the game, CCP is pretty supportive and pumped about it. They're just, especially now more than ever, the content or the community management team are just basically Eve players that are geeking out about Eve alongside the rest of us. So that helps. All right. So next up, we're going to talk about the SCC keys and the war, but really a little bit of a news update about like what's been going on with the various different conflicts. Just kind of breezing over it because we don't have that much of a deep dive on any one of these things. But first and foremost, on Tuesday, we got the SCC keys for the first time. But the issue is that the sites are a lot more complicated than I think a lot of people gave it credit for from the very beginning. And also yesterday had some design problems and also potentially some bugs that combined together made it so that basically nobody could do them. They made a change last night. So the issue is that in the site, there are two different hackable containers, and both of these sites have to be hacked within a few seconds of each other. And if either of them fail, or if you don't do both at the same time, then the entire site locks down. Now, the site was supposed to unlock, but either it didn't unlock or it didn't communicate it well or whatever it was yesterday. So basically, most of the sites were just under lockdown. Today, they patched it, so now the lockdown unlocks after 2 minutes, and they also added a string or like a text that lets you know that, hey, the gates have been reset. So it now unlocks after 2 minutes if you fail, and it clearly indicates when that happens. So hopefully that helps. Now, the problem is that people still haven't really talked very much about what's going on the inside. And I finally found this site here right before the show. So couldn't try to run it right yet because A, I didn't have a second person here, and B, I had a show to do. So hopefully I'll do it after the show. But I went around and scanned a whole bunch of places in order to find it. I have a couple suspicions about the fact that the spawning of these sites may not be 100% random, but my suspicions are so tinfoily right now, I kind of don't even want to bring them up yet. But aside from that, they're relatively difficult to find, and they, of course, now require at least 2 people to do at minimum. So all I know is that there are people that are getting inside, and there are things that are dying to the SCC rats. Actually, let me pull that up on Zkill. That's one of the things I didn't previously set up. So, like always, you can see these rats on Zkill, and while yesterday they were not part of Concord, I think today they are. So, hold on, and they're more indexed. They're better indexed on Zkill now. So let me pull that up. So this is what's been killed by the SEC Security Cruiser, which is 2 Praxises and a Guardian. There's also a battleship, which has killed an Astero or a Stratios and a Paladin. And there is the SEC frigate that has killed a bunch more stuff. Little things, cruiser, Vexer, looks like Tech 1 Explorer, all this kind of stuff. There's also, of course, the landmines and a few of the others. Earlier, gosh darn it, now, there it is, Concord Assembly. Here, now we can see all of them. So the SEC Security Gunstar is killing a Buzzard. And so I don't actually know what's going on inside of these sites, but they're pretty deadly to a lot of people. One of the problems is that without good information coming out yet, I don't know whether or not you're supposed to be sneaking around inside or not. So hopefully we'll be getting into these things. I also think that if Nth Dimensional's still live, he's currently the one that's researching those. So when this show's over, we'll raid him and maybe get some more information. So the big news about the SCC sites are they are live. They are now totally functional, but we don't know how many people are even successfully doing it because the people who are succeeding aren't on this page. So all I can say is that some people are getting in and some people are dying. Given the fact that the things that are dying are bigger or scarier or inside, I would suspect that inside is another challenge where you're supposed to be cloaked or hidden or not get caught. And these people are people who got caught. But we'll see. Awesome. Yeah,
we need fleets.
And I'm hearing from chat that he wants us to go join him, which I really want to do, but we got to finish the rest of the show first. So we're going to jump right ahead and hopefully get over there in time. All right. So to not dive into it too much, but I do want to cover, in case you weren't aware, the war is coming to an end. The war in Nullsec. There's an ultimatum on the table. I don't have the exact timeline in front of me, but basically in a few weeks, the Pappy forces will make their final assault on the constellation that includes 1DQ, and they've given themselves a timeline. And at that end of that timeline, if they have not already taken it, then they will admit defeat and go home. This is incredible to me. I think that this is going to be a very, the next decade of EVE Online could be decided based on how this plays out. And so I'm interested in figuring out how to cover it and pay attention to it and watch it for what it is. It's going to have profound effects on the market. It's going to have profound effects on the game. And the thing is that I mostly want to be able to pay attention to it because what I don't want is the winners or the losers attempting to manipulate information about how the war went or why the war was won or why the war was lost after the fact. I don't want people to be able to blame mechanics when they were outplayed. I don't want people, even though they're going to, as the person that sits here and puts things into context, I need to be able to witness as much of it as I can, or understand as much of it as I can live. So that way years from now I can say, no, it was really this. So it's going to be an interesting thing to pay attention to. Most of the rest of this war has been kind of tangentially interesting, but this, not very often do people pin a history, a moment of history on the calendar ahead of time. So it's going to be worth watching.
Yep.
Do you have any plans for that?
I mean, I'm just watching very carefully. I kind of wanted to go out there in a Vexor, but and see for myself, but that's a quick ticket home, if you know what I mean. So I was like, no, I'm good. I'm looking forward to the end of the war, as it's been going on for over a year now. So it's going to be interesting. I know that I've talked to some players that are involved in the war on both sides, and they're both tired of fighting. So it is what it is. It's war.
It's weird. So it's often said that EVE has a compressed timeline, like matches reality, but with a compressed timeline. And it's very true. What's even though it's only been a year, we have what we call what you could call children of war, right? There's a significant percentage of the player base, just because of the nature of the turnover of the game. There's a significant portion of the player base that literally knows nothing else but this war, that hasn't played in a time in which Pappy didn't exist. So it's had a pretty profound influence, but in a weird way, it's like now the war is being conducted by the children of the war. So of course they're exhausted. They're not even fighting their own, like, it's not their bitterness. The only reason why they're fighting is because to them, it's always been fought, which is kind of spooky in a weird way. But do you have a side that you're rooting for?
Well, I have friends in both sides. I've met good people from both sides. So, if I had to choose between one of the two, um, it's hard. I would probably go with Test. And the reason being is, I think I haven't been, like, in the past year since the war started. The last thing I heard before I came back was Test had took over a lot of the constellations, right? So, so I'm like kind of torn between Test and Goon, but I think with the biggest territorial, being taken over, it would be Test at the moment.
So I kind of think about, like, what is going to be the ramifications of each side, because, like, as an external person, I'm more interested in the ramifications of the result, right? But one of the interesting things about this war was that the blue donut was always a criticism, but it was a criticism that all of the sides kind of got along. And so one of the interesting things that this war has done is externalize the blue donut from the Imperium. So rather than there being a blue donut, which, I mean, I guess we could argue about the veracity of whether or not there ever was, but if there was, Imperium was part of it. And this war separated the two. And so on the surface, I actually think that the result of Pappy smashing into the Imperium and failing, and therefore breaking up into a bunch of bitter infighting people, like, my optimistic side says that this could break the blue donut in a very real way. Whereas if Pappy wins and they just simply beat the Imperium, now there's actually a pressure that forces Pappy to stay together, to continue to suppress this now more nebulous enemy of the Imperium. So on that level, it almost seems like the more direct path is the Imperium winning, and then that breaking them. And now we've got the Imperium has proven that they can hold their territory, and everybody else has to figure out what to do with the rest. And the next decade's basically defined with the Imperium going after old grudges. That is, on the surface, the more interesting solution, but it's also by the way I just explained it, the more predictable solution. Pappy winning against Imperium is chaos. Can Pappy keep it together? They can't. Spoiler alert, they won't. What happens when that fractures? How does the Imperium come back from that? So while it's more straightforward to say the Imperium winning could damage the very concept of the blue donut, that may be overly idyllic, and it may be more interesting to say that Pappy winning invites chaos. But ultimately, thankfully, it doesn't matter what I think. We're just going to have to wait and see and watch.
Yeah.
That said,
And that's what it is.
There has been another war going on that we've been involved in. And I'm probably going to be on Talking Stations later talking about this. But why don't you start off by talking a little bit about how this has been for you? What about the Entaki campaign?
Well, the Intaki campaign was one of the first systems in my dabble in faction warfare that I went into. So I actually watched it go from like 30% all the way to fully taken at 100%. So when the IHO was taken over, and that happened on live stream for those of you that were in my live stream at that time. That was a big deal to me, you know, because I was in the plexus, I was doing the work, while others were fighting elsewhere, in the war, and lost a few ships, got on a few kill mills, and it happened. So I mean, it was a big deal. I'm glad it's done. Now it's just the point of defending it, right?
Right. So, and I'm pulling up also while we talk, I'm pulling up the stats for Fleet because it's another one of the major targets. So basically during Liberation Day, during the Liberation Day events, Intaki was taken by the state. You can kind of see, here is the Intaki campaign in a nutshell. You can see where the state takes Intaki. It goes back down to 0. It takes us a couple days to kind of get things together to attack. And then we come back from Liberation Day and begin attacking on Sunday and start working our progress up. By the time we got to about the 70%, like increasing resistance every single day, you can see kind of I make less progress every day. And if we scroll up, you can see there's a lot more ship kills starting about when we hit halfway through. We started having fighting all the way up. We had probably dozens, if not over 100 or more people joining faction warfare on either side during the course of this conflict. It's been awesome for Aderon Robotics and our recruitment. Meanwhile, on the other front, of course, Fleet has had continued conflict. We've been pushing it down, but I mean, it has had good, consistent conflict every single day from both sides fighting over it. And even right now, it's at a pretty high level because the state is angry and pushing back. So faction warfare has been producing one of the top 3 most deadliest systems at all times for over 2 weeks now, since we decided that Intaki was worth taking back. And I'm not saying to go to Intaki. Actually, we're trying to let Intaki quiet down now. We're bringing the fights over to Hadley's and Fleet and Devon and that kind of stuff. But this was a clear sign that faction warfare is not dead. In fact, is livelier than ever. The conflict was fierce. There was tons and tons of good fights. I've got 7 hours or more of me fighting fleets, and I've split out a bunch of the fights out of there, and I'm going to be releasing them on my YouTube as shorts. But there's a lot more to come, and now we're seeing daily fleets of 10 to 25 people and round the clock fleets of like 5 to 10 people on the Gallente militia, and the state is only growing stronger. So, to those people who are interested in, the idea of conflict for territory, and maybe nullsec is either not the place for you, or you want smaller gang, or you want a place where, work really, really matters and all that kind of stuff. Faction warfare is a great place for new players, brand new players and alpha clones, secondary characters to come and get content, learn to fight, make good ISK.
Yep.
So you made a brand new alpha though, right? You didn't even bring your main.
I did. I made. like I was telling you earlier, I lived in high sec all of within 4 years, all but 4 months, and never done PvP before until I got into faction warfare. So, and I brought a brand new alpha tune straight out of the box and brought him straight into fighting. So, it's pretty fun.
Right.
It really is.
And I think that, again, I want to stress that the thing that was important about it wasn't Intaki. Nobody cared about Intaki except for me and the world news.
Mhm.
The point is that you could do that anywhere, right? You could throw a dart at a map and make a big deal about going there and making it your territory and be loud about it. And guess what? Assholes will come to start fighting you. And then other people will rally to come help you. And this is how content gets made. Let's play in a sandbox, people. This is good stuff. So, and this is only the beginning, man. Like, the Gallente are rebuilding. The state is powerful. Faction warfare is alive right now.
Very much so. And like you said earlier, it's actually more interesting than the nullsec war.
Well,
Even, I mean,
some
you've got
people say
more
that.
people involved.
There are people there are different things for different people. So, like, if you like that, big scale, super capitals, all that kind of stuff, tie dye, all that kind of stuff. If that's like, yeah, let's do that, then that's fine. But if you want to just constantly fight, scrap it up, that idea of like die, reship, go back in, keep fighting, this is what you want. And the thing that I think that people don't realize, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, is that the mechanics of plexes, which have size gates, like, different size plexes allow for different ships. And the reason why that's important is because when you're fighting over a system, you need all of the plexes, which means the fighting is actually shifting every 10 to 15 minutes, right? It's not just about can my comp beat the enemy comp? It's, well, that comp can fit in these plexes and I can't. So now I have to reship if I want to go fight them in there. Or maybe there's too many of them, so I can bring bigger, nastier ships that they can't fight, but now I have to concede other ones. What can I do? What can I harass? And so you don't really see all those mechanics in play when you're just like trying to farm faction warfare for LP. It's only when you're trying to take a system or hold a system that the true level of complexity of faction warfare conflict starts to play out.
Yeah. I think it's important to have all types of ships in faction warfare, so we definitely need more people in faction warfare.
Yeah,
As it's a good thing.
it's true. It's true.
But
All right, so let's see. That's it for that. And then, so I got one more thing I wanted to do. We do have the world news for the day, but I wanted to read and cover those. And because I did the reading of the world news last time and people really liked that. So we have gotten 2 world newses back to back. I thought it was really important for us to take Intaki back before the world news came out and made a big deal about the fact that we had taken it and said what Lidai did to it while we were gone. So we did take it back, and then like a couple days later, they came out with 2 world news articles, and Intaki is mentioned in both of those. So I feel a little bit vindicated in that regard, but something tells me this is not the end of the story for Intaki either for this reason. But all that said, let's jump into this. All right. Hold on. Let me get some water.
good.
Galactic Hour News Roundup. Inner Circle Security Summit reduces EdenCom funding. So this is part 1. That's a big one. This is actually interesting because when these SCC sites were first being seen, I noticed that they were labeled as Aegis, not EdenCom. And I was like, I've always said that, like, I wonder if that means that EdenCom is going to be weakened somehow and leave just Aegis exposed, because Aegis is the Concord side of things. EdenCom is like basically the deal that Concord has struck with the empires for them to supply a navy for the Concord to organize and orchestrate to defend against the Triglavian menace, and that's EdenCom, right? The new Eden Common Defense Initiative. And that's why they raised the taxes, so that way they could support these guys. Interesting that this happens right when the taxes get reduced for 3 months. But either way, so something to pay attention to. Let's jump into it. The Scopes Galactic Hour with Rex Gloriax brings your roundup of the latest news from around the cluster as Concord Inner Circle slashes the income of New Eden Defense Fund and deadlocks over militia warzone peacekeeping while tensions escalate in the occupied territories. Inner Circle Security Summit reduces New Eden Defense Fund income. Uli Genesis, Concord and Inner Circle has agreed to provisional reduction of the funding provided to the New Eden Defense Fund via generated taxation from the Big Four core empires and associated territories. Despite a strong appeal to maintain centralized funding levels from Edencom's Provost Marshal Kasia Valkanir, delegates from the Empire were insistent on changing the unusual show of unanimity. Reports from sources close to the negotiations suggest that the consensus for reducing the New Eden Defense Fund income in case of desperate state interests aligning behind a particular measure, rather than an example of warming interstellar relations. In particular, the Amar Empire and Galente Federation have both shown signs of increasing impatience with the large burden placed upon their economies by the New Eden Defense Fund and New Eden Common Defense Initiative, Edencom. Domestic outlays on infrastructure and military spending have increased considerably in recent months for the two largest star empires. The Galente Federation has embarked on a large program of public works focused on the periphery districts, while also accelerating military recruitment and rebuilding as the need to address more traditional threats reassert itself in the aftermath of the Triglavians' invasion. The Amar Empire has also been spending vast sums of its own military rebuilding program, while pursuing a major security crackdown on heretics and dissidents. For their own part, the Caldari State and Mimitar Republic have been strong critics of the way in which the New Eden Defense Fund and Edencom have been administered, particularly in terms of the balance of fortifications along Empire borders. The Mimitar Republic has previously stated its concerns that Edencom has become a means of, quote, aggressive state actors to advance their military objectives and consolidate gains contrary to the Uli Accords, in a formula that is understood as an accusation of Edencom partially for the Amar Empire. The Caldari State has chafed under the funding agreement since the Triglavian invasions resulted in disastrous loss of systems, and Edencom's policy has come in for heavy criticism from megacorporations keen to offer disgruntled Caldari citizens an alternative target for their outrage. Edencom fortifications and defense operations have also done little to address the heavy disruption of Caldari space by Triglavian raiders, prompting acting CEP chair Akima Saraki, I'll get his name one of these days, to personally instruct the Caldari delegation to vote for the funding reduction. So here we go. Step one, cracks are forming, as they would say in the nullsec world. I actually think this is actually kind of neat how CCP was able to weave a combination of the lore events that have been going on in the background and the results of just how Triglavian invasions played out to make these kind of arguments. Like it does feel like it's one evolving story, which is one of the things I really like about this world news. But what this sets up, well, we're just gonna have to wait and see, I think.
Yeah.
Diplomatic wrangling resumes as militia war zones dominated by Amar and Caldari paramilitaries. Uli Genesis. Against a background of Amar and Caldari paramilitary offenses, ongoing discussions in the inner circle on the status of militia war zones continue to be fractious. Despite the functional consensus achieved in New Eden Defense Fund, Concord's proposal for Edencom to carry out a, quote, peacekeeping function, end quote, in the Concord emergency militia war power zones were dismissed, while Galente proposal to demilitarize temperate war zone planets and place their defenses under local control is considered, quote, unworkable, end quote, by many others or observers. So a couple things there. First of all, if you notice, Edencom no longer deploy those Sino-jammers in LOSEC. People didn't really notice that, but Edencom were encroaching into LOSEC, and then that got complained about. So now they don't do it anymore. So that's it's a direct, might be a reference to that, or it's it's in the same vein. Capsuleer militia forces aligned with the 24th Imperial Crusade recently achieved complete control of the Amar Mimitar war zone for several days, and continue to overwhelmingly dominate the zone. Similarly, Caldari State Particulate Militia forces have captured the vast majority of systems within the Caldari Galente war zone. Offensive by the Amarr and Caldari militias have lasted for 3 months, have prompted militia factions within the Amarr Empire and Caldari State to advocate for renegotiations of the fundamental territorial agreements established by the Uli Accords, alarming Concord diplomats and conflict monitors. Federal Defense Union and Tribal Liberation Force militias have commenced their own counteroffenses, notably liberating the Intaki system after nearly 2 weeks of Caldari occupation and pushing the 24th Imperial Crusade out of Helg. Caldari State megacorporations have been playing up militia gains as a sign of resolved military fortunes, hoping to reduce unrest along worker populations as restrictions on assembly and movement continue to be lifted. Recruitment campaigns for Black Rise colonial developments and megacorporations, quote, asset reclamation operations, end quote, in the occupied systems have also increased. So this is actually a reference to the fact, this is also the thing about the Intaki system one, which is that at the beginning of the whole faction warfare thing, like years ago, the Caldari State auctioned off the war zone. So the 8 megacorporations bid on which systems. So like within the state, they have an agreement on who owns which systems, even the systems that aren't in their territory. So when they take over, you're basically just like, they see it as like, now they have a Galente system, but it belongs to Lydai, which is why, you know, Lydai dumped a whole bunch of toxic waste on Intaki 5. Anywho, the Amarr Empire's House Sorum has continued to expand and heavily fortify its bases on the Ugali's constellation of Metropolis. Ugaid's constellation of Metropolis, bordering the bleak lands. However, Amarr pressure is also being exerted on the Anglis constellation, with reports from the long-occupied and well-populated Cligori system indicating Sorum-aligned forces based on the 4th planet has landed recon forces on the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th planets. In a shift from its own more defense-oriented policies, House Artichaper is also reported to be deployed its recon and survey forces to the occupied Heads constellation and Hematar region, using carriers based out of the heavily fortified Amatar Mandate system of Jark. So, things are moving, guys. All right. Amnesties announced after official inauguration of the Ray of Matar Memorial. Patar Hematar. Samatar Malaku Shakur presided over last night's ceremony to officially inaugurate the memorial statue of late Chief Carrion Midgeler, the Ray of Matar, in the orbital caravanserai of the Tribal Council. In a speech marking the life and achievements of the Ray of Matar, Sanmatar Shakur hailed the late Sebastir's chief as, quote, a visionary who saw that the Minmatar people are fully capable of once more flourishing and surpassing the heights of our ancient forebears, and who worked tirelessly towards the day when we would do so in peace and prosperity, end quote. The Sanmatar expressed a deep regret that Midgeler's commitment to peace had, quote, not become fruit in her lifetime, end quote, but noted that, quote, this was not for want of her inestimable character, nor lack of desire from our people for peace. Rather, war has always been thrust upon us by the violence and rapacity of Karen Midgeler's greatest foe in the quest for peace, the Amarr Empire, end quote. Following the official ceremony, Samatar Shakur announced wide-ranging amnesties for, quote, those who many years ago chose to fight for the freedom of the Matar by means that necessitated breaking the laws of the Republic and the tribes, end quote. The amnesties cover and exhaust all political terrorist crimes committed by members of specific organizations more than 5 years ago. Organizations the amnesty applies to include the Bloody Hands of Matar and the Defiance, both organizations officially outlawed under successive Minmatar governments. Blanket prescription of membership to these organizations and several minor groups have also been lifted by order of the Tribal Council. So basically, Karen Midgeler was known because there was another commander who was the head of the Defiance, and Karen Midgeler ordered him to be taken out by the Minmatar Republic. And the problem was that, like, this guy was a freedom fighter like all the rest of them. He was just willing to break the rules. And that's what made him so dangerous. And so the fact that the head of the Minmatar basically ordered the Minmatar Navy to attack a Minmatar to stop him was always kind of controversial. But like part of this whole thing, they created 2 new statues, one for each of them, and put them up. And so this also allows them to, or like I said, it's allowing amnesty. So the RP people that are involved in the Minmatar conflict can either re-engage with that in one way or another, or they could flip side, like they can like re-engage without worrying about the fact that they are a defiant. Oops, excuse me. Worrying about the fact that they're a defiant or a bloody hand, preventing them from helping out with the Minmatar in the future, or whatever else. So this is an interesting effect in that sense, but also I don't think the Amarr are going to take kindly to this. I think the Amarr might take exception to these groups being forgiven, potentially. So we'll have to see where that goes. Oh, I've been corrected to Ishikone is the ones that own Intaki, not Lidai. But now I'm confused as to why they dumped stuff on them. But either way, we'll get there. News in brief. Guristas pirate implicated in raid of House of Records archives. What is it? Ataris? I think it's Ataris. The Forge. Caldari authorities have alleged that the Guristas pirates were behind a weekend raid of the House of Records Information Center in the Ataris system. The raids are believed to have penetrated several secure data vaults within the facility. Concord sources have confirmed that a number of disruptive raids were also mounted on several Concord stations in the system. DED investigators are reported to view the raids on the Concord stations as a distraction mounted while, quote, the main Guristas infiltration force quietly penetrated the House of Records vaults, end quote. While the Caldari Chief Executive Panel has ordered a full inventory of the data held by the Arturis House of Records archive, there has been no comment from the organization itself. Informed sources have claimed that the staff of Archive K has arrived at the Arturis to oversee the House of Records investigation. Archive K has long been rumored to be a secret intelligence and security branch of the House of Records. Put a pin on that one.
Yep.
And then derail forces arrest hundreds on charge of, quote, conspiracy to develop illegal AIs. Ugalis Placid. Concord's Department for Enforcement on Restrictions of Artificial Intelligence and Life, derail, has reported the arrest of, quote, several hundred conspirators, end quote, in an alleged plot to develop illegal AI in raids across the Ugalis system. The majority of the arrests were apparently carried out on board the Ezochi Okami, a mobile submarine colony platform operating in the shallows of Ugalis 4 storm planet oceans. Raids were also carried out elsewhere on Ugalis 6, not 4, and other planets and stations in the Ugalis system. In related news, the Lidai Protection Service's 203rd Combined Asset Protection Regiment has arrived in Ugalis to carry out, quote, asset reclamation operations, end quote, while the system's under the Caldari militia occupation. Oh, while the system is under Caldari militia occupation. We should take it back. Reports indicate that the 203rd has landed a team on the first moon of Ugalis 5, having filed a notice with the Caldari Business Tribunal that they will carry out, quote, research and survey of anomalies in the Ugalis system. By the way, I am currently in the Ugalis system, so we'll have to see. Oh, yeah. So somebody in my channel is saying, look, Mom, I'm on TV. Ugalis RP shenanigans have been a lot of fun. I want to know more about the actual RP shenanigans about it, especially with the way that this change, what happens with this story in the next article. But anywho.
Yeah.
Quaife Corporation. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. You're good.
No, go on.
I didn't even know there was an RP side of Eve. Honestly, until Faction Warfare, I was like, "What in the world?"
Oh, it gets pretty deep. All right. Quaife Corporation agrees lease extension and export tariffs in Bossburger Hematar. In a rare deal concerning the Minmatar Republic and Amarr Empire's interest, the Quaife Corporation has agreed to lease extension of its raw material harvesting colonies on Bossburger 1 with the Minmatar Republic, while also agreeing in a regime export tariff from the planet with the Amarr Empire. The agreement is understood to guarantee the security of Quaife colonies and convoys within the militia war zone system, and important sources of material for Quaife manufacturing installations across the Heaven. Oh gosh, Havilma constellation. I don't see these constellations names often enough. A Quaif spokesperson says, quote, "We've noticed a significant increase in conflict in the area and took steps to secure our business interests with our partners in both the Empire and Republic. Boskberger 1 is an important source of organic materials used by our factories, and we expect the increased harvest this year. With transport links secured by these agreements, we are also considering an adventure tourism program, as there has been noticeable increase in the intensity and variety of planetary aurora activity recently." My only comment to this is, why does CCP keep talking about planets? Spoiler alert, it's almost like they're creating locations for a future game that will be set on planets. In other news, Amar blockade of Flossiswin 4 shoots down Mimitar stealth transport as counter-cloaking satellites ring planet. That must have been something that actually happened. That sounds like somebody used an observatory. Not cloaking out. Federal Marines deploy fresh troops and planetary defense material to Intaki Prime following FDU liberation of system. I want to point out that the troops are not FDU troops. They're federal troops, and Intaki has asked for help, but that gets referenced in the next article as well. Republic Justice Department reports elimination of Equilibrium Mankind's cell on Kulhim to Tribal Council. Order of Saint Tetramon captures EOM cult leader on Risal 7 holder rank cultists handed over to Artishipper Royal Guards. Fortin investigates commission into election attacks, downplays FIO theory of EOM involvement in YC-122 terrorist outage. So all three of those are follow-ups to the EOM situation, the EOM all along. It's continuing to kind of play out, but it's now back in the background of things. We'll have to see if it goes loud again sometime soon. Integral spokesman Seratim Folcott, which is he's the Triglavian, he's the Kybernaut, right? So Integral is the Triglavian or the pro-Triglavian Capsuleers, according to the lore, like Kybernauts. So this is the official, he's the NPC actor that they used earlier when Dutch Gunner was trying to go into Pochfin. He's the guy that came out and spoke on behalf of the convocation, formally from Integral. So, and he's got doesn't have the full Triglavian mask. He's got the ninja mask on. So either way, Integral spokesman Seratin Folcott broadcast message dismissing claims of coercion in Veil system as Edencom propaganda. Notably, Veil of their groups has been the most supportive of just joining the Triglavians. Probably because the Gallente are, democratic people. And so they're kind of they're part of a larger collective. So when the Triglavians took over, Veil was just all right, we're part of your group now. And that has been kind of upsetting to Gallente. And so earlier in the World News, I think last World News article, they accused it of being that there's coercive techniques being used in Veil. And so now the spokesman is saying, nah, that's just Edencom propaganda. Huge underwater explosions reported on Skarkon 2. Vast quantities of debris and cloud of ash-like substances blanket coasts. There's been a lot of conflict between the Triglavians and a lot of really nasty stuff and bombs and booms going on these planets. Skarkon 2 being one of those systems that was a heavy conflict zone prior to them becoming part of Pochfin, but now it's in Pochfin and it's been a conflict zone both between, the previous residents there, but also actually multiple clades fighting in that system. Military governor on Ener 6 requests increased forces from tribal council as death mounts in Angel Cartel Krulifer gang war. That's another one of those stories. The Angel Cartel and Krulifer gang war is one of those things that's been going on now for years, but I actually don't know anything more than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm not up to par with the lore from that side.
Yeah, the Mimitar stuff is complicated, and Liberation Day did give us a little bit of an insight, but it's still very complicated. So I'd recommend talking to Arcia or Elizabeth. They're both incredibly knowledgeable and very deep into Mimitar lore and history. Of course, the next on the 10th, I think it is. Probably, I'm pretty sure that's when the Amar holiday starts. So, expect to see on Hobo Leaks, I've seen some signs that there may actually be combat sites for that too. I'm not sure. There's a lot of stuff with the equilibrium of mankind and all that stuff. So I think that it's very possible for the Amar holiday, we might see like a Purge the Heretic kind of thing going on, but I'm not sure yet. But either way, it's coming mid next month through the end of next month. And that we'll probably see trivia games and get more information about the Mar Empire in the same way. Probably not as big as the Mimitar Liberation Day was, but probably closer to like the Galente Foundation Day. All right. Now, the world news from yesterday. SEC security breach leads to financial chaos and epic bank heist by Guristas pirate raiders. So this is a follow-up from the previous one about the Guristas. Uli Genesis. Secure Commerce Commission facilities across New Eden has been breached by the Guristas, leading to a follow-up raids on the SEC and counter-surveillance system reserve banks by the infamous pirate group. Chaotic scenes are reported at SEC facilities with security wide open as secured data and even ISK accounts have been exposed to attack by hackers and criminal gangs. Concord's Inner Circle has demanded an investigation into these events, just as the agreed reduction in funding for the New Eden Defense Fund and subsequent SEC tax and brokerage reductions have come into force. The locations of many SEC secure facilities has been exposed by the data leaks, and Concord has rushed additional security forces and defense systems into these sites. While the additional defenses will deter many, and the allure of vast quantities of ISK still remaining in ESS reserve banks across New Eden is likely to prove irresistible for hardened criminals and capsuleer pirates. The Guristas raid on the SEC's secure key storage and SEC vaults are believed to have made off with trillions of ISK, valuable financial data, and security access codes. Security analysis are speculating that series of recent raids by the Guristas have been a prelude to a grand heist, allowing them to assemble a picture of certain locations, procedures, and vital protocols ahead of these massive raids. Just this last weekend, a Guristas force raided a number of facilities in the Arturus system, ostensibly to gain access to the Caldari House of Records archive. However, in light of the massive multi-location heist of the SEC facilities, the House of Records infiltration may itself has been just a misdirection, as a number of Concord stations are located in Arturus. Financial markets across New Eden are reeling in the news of the heist, just as the SEC tax and brokerage changes come online. Such is the disruption of the systems that a significant quantity of ISK has been routed through the tax rebate and claim system, with a huge number of citizens claiming an unexpected and unauthorized largesse. Concord and Empire law enforcement believe the rebate claim system has itself been hacked and achieved and activated en masse as a means for the Guristas to steal yet more ISK, with the side effect being that it is leading to large payouts of all manner of citizens, probably viewed as, quote, a joke or useful public image propaganda by the Guristas. In response to questions as he left the SEC briefing, Captain Marshal Serdan Zerkosh, a Mar delegate to the Inner Circle, commented, quote, these events only undermine the correctness of the Imperial Court's view that Concord and Edencom have both been guilty of dreadful mismanagement of the interstellar financial and security systems, end quote. Ambassador Devin Maladate of the Galente Federation added, quote, while I often disagree with Captain Marshal Zerkosh, it must be said that in this case, he has put his finger on the essence of the problem. Concord's bureaucracy is often as complacent as it is arrogant. In other news, before we'll move on from that. So, that's the SEC bank heists. I also think it's hilarious that, with everybody, especially in relationship to the people on Reddit going, oh my God, CCP's just giving us free ISK and rah, rah, rah. No, they actually justified it. The Guristas are. So yeah, our login rewards for the next few days, the reason why it's just raw chunks of ISK is because the Guristas have hacked the system and are just giving it out to everybody. So feel free to steal the SEC's ISK. All right. Now, if only we could run the sites.
Yep. which look very complicated, by the way.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Komodo Stock Exchange suspends trading as banks freeze accounts on news of SEC security breaches. Federal Stock Exchange, Tribal Security Exchange, and Imperial Trade Registry also closed. Firefight between Space Lane patrols and Grissus pirates reported in Verasi system. Crowds gather in Landfall Park in New Caldari Prime as financial disruption blamed on Grissus. Lie-Die megacorporations condemn Grissus as, quote, common thieves, liars, and swindlers. Upwell Consortium's Department of Friendship and Mutual Assistance. Which, by the way, one of my favorite facts about Upwell is that they have a Department of Friendship and Mutual Assistance. Reports, quote, limited exposure to breaches, end quote. Derail seizures of Ugali's system, rumored to include ancient technology and illegal precursor artifacts. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Republic Security Services suggest Grissus, quote, possibly used Triglavian technology provided by collaborators. FIO task force investigating assassinations and attempted killings across Placid, Solitude, and Syndicate regions. There was an assassination in Intaki system just a couple weeks ago, and there's been a couple other assassinations. I think that they started, well, I mean, they're not related to, but they started around the same time or just after the Black Dagger killings. Mixed views on federal Marine deployment on Intaki Prime. Whoopsie. Intaki Assembly confirms consultation by federal administration. See? The Intaki Assembly asked for it. They confirmed it. Intaki guys, just let us hold the system. We're not trying to fight it. Just let it, like, the Marines aren't a problem. Your guys asked for it. We're trying to free the system. The state want to abuse you. Just let us protect you. All right, carry on. Sorry, the pirates are like the locals in Intaki are like, we don't want this to be fighting, getting mad at us. And I'm like, look, man, the president's working with the Intaki people, and the Intaki people are happy about it. That's why we're here. If that wasn't happening, I wouldn't try to be fighting for it. Any rate, I'll carry on. Where are we? Amar Court Chamberlain office condemns Republic amnesties as an outright admission of state-sponsored terrorism. Oh, there you go. There it is. So the Amar are referring to the amnesty from yesterday, or for the other article, as being state-sponsored terrorism. And then Galente Police Directorate requests radical Amar Sedevacanists cult to be outlawed as terror organizations similar to the EOM. So we'll see where some of those things are playing out. But there's a lot going on. The thing about this Ugali's thing, and Laurel is in my chat, and I'd really like them to talk to me as much as they possibly can about what's going on, because here's the thing. So the Ugali's situation started out as like this RP lark, right? Somebody just like did a thing on the forums, like a lot of people do, and was just like making a noise about it. And then it like made it into the world news. And they were like, yay, I made it into the world news. And everybody, and like there were some people, like including me, that were like, hey, there's bots throughout the war zone. Ugali's is in the war zone. Maybe this is about the bots. And they're like, no. This is not about that. This is just about this weird RP thing that we're doing in the side. But it keeps coming up. So like, for being just like, hey, I'm going to give this player a bit of a, they did a cool thing, so I'm going to recognize it in the world news. You get one like after headline like these, but like it keeps showing up. And Derail moved in, and now it got like an article in the previous one about Derail and about this AI and hundreds being arrested. And now they specifically say ancient technology. And so on the one hand, I think that the people that are involved in this, including Laurel, are doing something really cool, and I'd like to know more about it and bring that story to you guys as soon as possible. But I'm also deeply concerned that they may have struck something, and Delegate Zero is playing towards it, because I don't know whether or not you fully realize what you're unleashing right now. And maybe they do, but there's a lot going on here, right? Because when it comes to illegal AI and precursor technology, that has some pretty dramatic red flags when it comes to things like the drifters and the other. But Laurel was mentioning that their stuff, like a lot of this is related to the Yanyong, which is, if if our understanding of history is true, the Yanyong were actually one of the two dominant species or empires back when the Eve Gate first closed. That Jove were actually barely a fledgling empire at this time. It was the Talokan and the Yanyong. The Talokan, of course, created Enoikis, and we see their ruins there. Yanyong is the most mysterious, and they are actually one of the Yanyong has now shown up in Echoes, which is kind of interesting. But the Yanyong is the Gallente precursor race, and we haven't heard a lot about them in Tranquility, or in our in our version of Eve Online. But there's a lot of really spooky implications about who they might be and what this might entail if they're putting that sort of stuff into play. All right.
Can I play with the kids?
Hold on one second. All right.
They're out there.
Oh, hold on.
Thank you.
All right. So that about wraps up the world news. Let's see if Laurel has anything. The Yanyong are implied to be the Yin-Mei precursors largely. Well, it says that they were masters of gravitonic energies, and then they just vanished. And if you piece that together with some of the stuff that was shown on Echoes, plus some other stuff, there's reason. I personally believe that in the beginning, there was the Yanyong versus the Talokan. And the Talokan used their Dyson swarms to manipulate space and create things like Enoikis, whereas the Yanyong were way more focused on Isogen 5. I think that the Yanyong were the people who did the stuff with the Isogen 5. I think that the Yanyong may have even been the guys who made the caches. And I think that the caches were either a way for them to attempt to reopen the Eve Gate, or I always called it either the drawbridge or the battering ram, right? Whereas if one of those two forces, if the Talokan built Enoikis to go there and hide in their fortress, the Yanyong built the Isogen 5 caches so that way they could detonate it to either prevent the Talokan from coming in, or, as we see now, make holes to Enoikis to invade. But it never got to that phase. But given the fact that they are the ones who were masters of gravitonic energies, and it's often seen as the gravitonic properties of Isogen 5 that is so special about it, it leads me to believe that they are the precursor race that did, because we still don't know which of the precursors built the caches or did any of the stuff with Isogen 5. We just know that one of the races from Terra did, and I believe it might have been the Yanyong.
That's interesting.
And all right, so I think with all that being said, that might be it for the day for this show. And I don't want to necessarily go on too long with it because this is, we want to be able to make our regular show and all that stuff. And this is a good amount of our updates. Once again, the Wednesday show is about what's kind of changing, what's going on. Today was more about catching up with everything and introducing you and getting you on the show and saying hi to everybody. We would have loved to have talked about these sites more, but I think we're going to see if we can raid to find out more. But thanks for coming. Do you want to say anything before we leave? I know I haven't given you that much of a chance to talk today either.
No, you're good, man. Just thank you everybody for watching, of course, and for those of you that are that just followed my channel prior to this going live, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yep, and we'll be able to check out your stream in a few hours. And then, like I said, I'm going to try to be on Talking Stations today. The plan is, but of course, we'll see how things play out. So, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you for checking it out. For those of you watching live, thank you for checking it out. If you want to support it, please follow and or subscribe on either side. Would really appreciate it. And we'll be doing this every Wednesday and Friday, plus more content to come. So
Yes.
thank you guys for watching. And until next time, we'll see you in space.
Yep. Fly safe, guys.